It's the Italian four-door sedan that was able to take on the Germans and win. It's the Alfa Romeo Guilia. Way back in the 1950s, Alfa had been dabbling in the four-door sedan market with various versions of the Giulietta. That, started to become outdated as the 1960s arrived, so they decided to design a car specifically for the compact sedan market. You see, the Giulietta was great, but it was more of a multi-purpose platform, with a sedan afterthought put on. It was a good sedan, but they wanted a purpose-built compact sedan for this one. So, in 1962, they launched the Giulia Type 105 at the Monza racetrack. This thing was a boxy, notchback sedan that still delivered the typical Italian fare. This thing looks darn good. And despite that boxy appearance, it has a relatively low drag coefficient of just 0.34 thanks to some wind tunnel testing. That helps it get better MPG, and on the inside it has a smooth ride with seating for 6 thanks to the column-mounted shifter. That's right, we got 2 bench seats, 3 in the front, 3 in the back. You don't see that anymore. There were faster models though. The 105 Super was the most popular one of them. Being one of the world's first sports sedans, the new carburetors bumped power to 110, giving this thing a 0 to 60 of under 12 seconds and a top speed of 115, which does not sound like a lot, and it's not. It's quite slow by today's standards, but back in 1962 sedan terms, that was blitzing fast. And more importantly, it weighed just 2,000 pounds, so it was incredibly good handling with those four-wheel disc brakes. It was basically the MX-5 of sedans in the 60s, and the Giulia sold well. They made estate cars of it, convertibles, vans, everything you can imagine of the Giulia. It was very, very good. But even that couldn't stop the passage of time, and by 1978 it was replaced by another generation of the Giulietta. I mentioned how the 105 Super was the fastest of this generation, and that's half true. You see, there is a little subcategory called the Giulia Sprint GTs. These things were designed by Giorgetto Giuliano, I think, of Bertone fame, aka the guy who designed things like the Ferrari 250 GT, the Volkswagen Golf, the Lotus Esprit, the Lancia Delta, just to name a few. His resume is off the charts. And they designed this thing for touring car racing. There were a lot of different versions of this. The 500 of them were road cars, making 105 horsepower, but the keys are the racing cars. The Alfa twin-cam inline 4 was bumped up to 240 horsepower in the what's known as the GTA versions. The track width was widened with massive fender flares to fit bigger tires. The panels were made out of aluminum to save weight, dropping it to just 2,100 pounds in the famous GTA M trim. These racing versions competed across the globe in pretty much any racing series you can imagine on circuits. And they won hundreds of races while doing so, including back-to-back European Touring Car Championships in 67 and 68, and 3 SCCA class wins from 1966 to 1970 here in the States. A 250 horsepower supercharged version called the GTSA won the 100-mile endurance race at Hockenheimring. It's small wonder then that these cars go for over 200 grand. But here's an interesting bit of trivia. No one actually knows how many of these vehicles were made. We know how many road cars were made for homologation purposes. That was 500. We know that. But the GTA, like AMs and the trims and the special editions purely for racing, we don't know that because, well, no one's ever gathered all of them up because there's a fair few of them, and most of them have been crashed or in private collections. And 2, they didn't have any VIN numbers on them. Why Alfa didn't put VIN numbers on these cars, I have no idea, but they didn't do it. Fast forward to the 2010s. Alfa's sales were slumping, and FCA was getting a little bit impatient with them, and they wanted some results. So Alfa invested £5 billion into a brand new 8-car lineup over the next coming years. And they decided the first car in that lineup should be a sedan to compete with the dominant German auto industry. So, in 2015, the Giulia Type 952 returned as Alfa's first front-engine rear-wheel drive layout in almost 2 decades. The project was overseen by Ferrari's technical director, Felipe Creef, which, while that may not be an impressive thing these days, back then, it was very, very good, and he made full effect of it. Aluminum shock towers, aluminum body panels, suspension bits, and more, all made out of aluminum. The drive shaft was made of carbon fiber just for good measure. That means, despite being a 4-door sedan, it weighed just 3,400 pounds and had perfect 50-50 weight distribution. It also had optional all-wheel drive paired to an 8-speed automatic gearbox, with an engine of 2.2-liter diesel or 2.2-liter gas options, making 200 horsepower. Not bad for a normal, compact, mid-size sedan. They even made a limited run version of that diesel version, called the Advanced Efficiency Edition, which had a revised bodywork and aerodynamics to get a drag coefficient of just 0.23. And it got 56 miles to the gallon. That's better than a Prius. And yes, the Italian government police that I can't even think of pronouncing did get a police version of this called the Panther. That's an awesome cop car nickname. You are not getting away from the fuzz in that one. But come on, we don't want to talk about advanced efficiency or diesel versions or 2-liter turbos. We want to talk about the Quadrifoglio? It was a high-performance version of the Giulia, rivaling the M3 ATS-V and the C63 AMG. It featured a Ferrari-inspired 2.9-liter twin-turbo V6 with side-mounted direct injection, water-charged air coolers, and turbos that generated 35 psi of boost. All this meant 503 horsepower and 443 foot-pounds of torque, all sent to the rear wheels as it should be in a sedan. 0 to 60, 3.6 seconds, top speed of 191. Track testing showed it was faster than a BMW M3 and a C63, and it was only a second slower than the all-wheel drive hybrid Honda NSX around a track. That is incredible for a rear-wheel drive 4-door sedan. And if that doesn't speak to enough, track testing at the Nürburgring meant a lap record of 7 minutes and 32 seconds. The thing is awesome. If it wasn't for the appalling reliability, we would probably own one, because it's the best looking, best handling, fantastic sedan, in my opinion, on the market. It's brilliant. But what if you want more than brilliant? What if you want faster? Well, Alfa Romeo's 110th anniversary has a car for you. The GTA name has come back for the Giulia in 2020. The track width was widened by 2 inches for bigger tires, and they were so devoted to weight saving they used center locking wheels just like a race car rather than the traditional wheels. All in all, 200 pounds have been chucked at that 4-door sedan. The engine was also overhauled to get 30 more horsepower out of it, and the suspension was overhauled as well to get more aggressive handling and better G's through the corners. The GT-AM also returned as, well, a road legal touring car, which is awesome. They do not make enough of those. This thing has optional rear seats. You can actually remove the rear seats in this car, and the windows are made of Lexan. The aero is hilariously aggressive, and racing harnesses have been installed. This thing is very loosely defined as a road car. I mean, you can even have historic racing liveries on your road sedan. They look fantastic. If you've seen these liveries, they look beautiful. On this already beautiful car, it's great. And customers who buy this thing, either one of them, get a personalized racing suit and car cover, and training at Alfa Romeo's driving academy. Only 500 of these monsters will be made, with an even 50-50 split between the models. But strangely, that's not the only GTA in production right now. You see, a small company called Alfaholics is dedicated to restoring classic Alfa Romeo vehicles and supplying Alfa Romeo continuation parts for old Alfa Romeo vehicles. And pretty soon, their parts catalog was so vast that they realized, why don't we just build an entire car? The result is the GTA-R. It may look like it was designed in the 1960s, but actually, you can buy one right now. It has a 240 horsepower twin-cam inline-4, redlining at 7,000 RPM. The whole car, thanks to its carbon fiber, aluminum, titanium construction, weighs just 830 kilograms. That's just over 1,800 pounds. This thing is phenomenal around the corners. The lightweight, rear-wheel drive, front-engine configuration, it reminds you exactly like the classic racers of old, only probably a bit more reliable. It's still Italian, you gotta be a little wary about that, but it is still a phenomenal machine with one caveat. It costs $315,000. Now, that seems like a lot for a 240 horsepower car. I mean, you can get a Toyota Supra with 100 more horsepower than that for a fraction of the price. But that cost comes into perspective when you see just how much detail goes into each vehicle. You see, the car is built to customer specifications exactly. Each car is different than the other. The floor mats are made of wool, the pedals are carved out of a single block of aluminum, and even the 12-point roll cage and his 4-point harness are covered in leather. So it may be incredibly expensive, but just like the Singer Porsche or the continuation Shelby Cobras, it's a piece of history, modernized with today's technology, today's safety, while still having that classic Italian feel. And it looks gorgeous, it sounds great. It's one of the best cars on the market right now, and while it's a very niche market, continuation classic cars, it might just be one of the best out there.